Well, welcome to the Best Wedding App podcast. I'm your host, Karis White, and today we have the amazing Florence Cappler-Shillington. Florence, she wears multiple hats with equal grace and a whole hell of a lot of style. She is a professional violinist and a violin teacher. She's got a great educational background. She earned a Bachelor in Music and Violin Performance at the University of Queensland. And she is amazing at her craft. In this episode, we're going to journey through her career. We're going to talk a little bit about life, her passion for the violin, her experiences as a performer, and what she can bring to your wedding. So welcome, Florence.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, it's so awesome to have you. Let's just start about how we met. So we met randomly at an open night at Bramley for Sposa weddings, which was amazing. And you were playing, and yeah, you were just incredible at what you do. Not only do you look amazing, but you're incredible at what you do. And that night you had a few technical hiccups, which I must say you handled with grace and elegance, because you probably don't know this about me, but I'm actually a performer first. So I'm a singer. I sang with Opera Australia and Victorian Opera, and I could see you up there going, holy heck. But you were so calm. Talk me through that. Talk me through what happens when something like that doesn't go to plan.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, that was a very stressful night. It was actually the first time I just purchased new equipment. I recently got a new wireless Bluetooth transmitter, and it was my first night using it. And I'm not actually sure what happened. I think the frequency was too high. And it just wouldn't connect properly, and my sound kept dropping in and out, which was a bit unfortunate. Very, very scary and daunting.
But I must say, like, I knew because I'm a performer, but possibly nobody else knew, because you literally just carried on, no panic about you, which is what we're taught to do. But does everybody achieve that? No, but you really did. Yes, you handled it with elegance and grace, and I actually got up and tried to help the person who was helping. But yeah, I don't actually know that anybody really noticed, because you are a true professional. And speaking of being a true professional, I saw you up on a ladder playing recently. What was that all about? And how hard is that? How did you do that in that amazing ball gown? Talk us through that before we get into all the other things. This is amazing.
Yeah, that was definitely a first for me. I was in this gorgeous big gold ball gown, and the train, it was actually a circumference of like 3 meters. So not only was it a train at the back, it was all this gorgeous fabric all the way around the dress. So
and was it made just
so
for you?
heavy?
Oh, I bet.
No. So the entertainment company, they just have a massive wardrobe of costumes. So they picked that one out for me for the night. I felt like Belle, Princess Belle in her big yellow ball gown. It was so nice, but it was very, very heavy. So getting up on the ladder, it definitely required a few people to help.
Yes. So let's set the scene for people. So actually, Florence would have had that dress up kind of over her head, and she would have had to climb the ladder and have someone help her. Then she would have had to drop the dress so that it went down over the ladder. And then someone would have had to help her, hand her violin. And then not only did she have to play, but she had to stand there and not fall.
Yes. Luckily, I wasn't wearing heels because the dress was so large. You can see my feet. So if I was in heels, I think it would be a very different story being up on that ladder. But yeah, it was very tricky. I didn't have much wriggle room because I was kind of almost strapped in by like this little metal barricade that went around my waist. So I really didn't have much room to move at all. So I was consciously having to think about my movements and how much I was moving in case the ladder went, or I was keeping an eye on guests that were stepping close to the dress as well, in case, someone stepped on the dress and then that caught on the ladder. So it was definitely fun. It was an experience.
Could you
I'd say
have
so.
fallen if you lost your balance?
Definitely, I think. Because the dress was so heavy as well, it made it very difficult.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I know we've let in with two crazy things. Let's also dive in who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in weddings. Obviously, I know, I've in my intro I've touched on your background, but how did you get into the whole wedding scene?
Yeah. So I'm actually very new to Melbourne. I moved probably now 2 years ago. I'm originally from Queensland, so I did my studies up there in Brisbane.
Oh,
And when I moved, I was still studying. I did a year of online study. And then about a year ago, I got into the wedding industry, and it kind of just, I guess, fell into my lap a little bit, which
okay.
I'm very blessed to say. I made a lot of great connections with other violinists and musicians, and everyone in Melbourne has been so welcoming and so beautiful. So they've been a great help and in passing along gigs to me when I was getting started and recommending me as well. So I've got to thank those people a lot for my growth, because it was, very daunting coming into a new city, an industry that I was just getting started into, like the freelancing kind of scene, as a classical violinist trained as well. So yeah, I'm very grateful to all the other musicians who made me feel welcome and involved me in gigs and weddings. So
Oh, that is so, so lovely. I know Sarah and I have chatted about you, and it is so important to have that network of people around you. And that's just lovely to hear that the Melbourne scene was welcoming. What inspired you to pick the violin? Like, why not the French horn? Just kidding. I had to play the. Look, no offense to any French horn players, but I shouldn't say my poor mom, poor me, actually. Mom made me play, fun fact, the French horn because we had a French horn at home. I wanted to be a drummer. And she was like, no, 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 no. We've got a French horn in the basement. You really need to play that. And it was such an old French horn that like to get it fixed was a nightmare, etc. But anyway, back to you. How did you choose the violin?
I must say that's such an odd instrument to have in the basement, a French horn. It's very unique.
Well, yeah. I mean, Mum grew up in small town Saskatchewan or Saskatoon, in a very, very small town called Watrous. And I think they were all about the big band. Like they used to do a lot of marching up and down the streets in summer, etc. And I don't know how the French horn got thrust into her life, but it got thrust into mine. And I hated it. I must say, I hated it. I once played a
Yeah.
really good solo, and that's it. Like I never practiced.
Yeah. Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah, I actually love the French horn. I think it's gorgeous. If I had my time again, I would have loved to have played a brass instrument and played saxophone or French horn actually, I think.
Wow.
Um yeah, one of the two, I think. If it was a brass instrument,
Yeah.
obviously strings are still have my heart.
And
Um
how did you get started? Because let's face it, when you're a kid learning the violin, it's not a pretty sound.
no. It's very hard. It's as a kid, like piano and all that. It's still beautiful. If you plonk along,
Yeah.
it still makes a really lovely sound. But yeah, violin, it can definitely sound like cats dying when you're first starting out. Yeah. I hope none of my students ever hear this, my mechanic students.
Oh, funny. I love it.
But I had an older cousin who I look up to, and she started playing violin. She was about 6 years older than I am. So she started learning the violin. And of
Oh,
course, being the little younger cousin, I wanted to copy everything she did. So I
yeah.
was a sheep, and I wanted to do what she did, and so I started playing the violin, and I just loved it. I just
Awesome.
absolutely fell in love with it. So yeah,
I think
that's
it's
basically how I came about it.
beautiful in life when you have someone that you can look up to. That's really nice. You weren't a sheep. You just
Yeah.
accepted her. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Tell me what, like when you play at a wedding, I mean, obviously it's very different to playing in an orchestra for a musical, etc. Um, what makes it different? What do you love about it?
Weddings, I feel they're very emotionally charged events.
Hmm.
And I'm a massive sucker. I know it's very cliche, but I'm a sucker for the romance. I love seeing couples on their wedding day. I love hearing the vows and seeing the family members. There's just so much love and excitement in the room that
Hmm.
it gets me a bit. So I think I have a soft spot for weddings, definitely for that reason. You can't help but feel good at them,
Yeah.
you know?
When you do a wedding, what capacity are you normally employed in? Is it to be that real show-stopping person on the dance floor when they have their dance? Is it in a trio or duo capacity? Is it during the canapes, or is it all different realms?
Definitely, I can wear a few different hats in terms of that for weddings, whether it's solo and it's providing ceremony music as they walk down the aisle, signing of registry, etc., or canapé hour, which is I usually perform on electric violin for that. So that's kind of livening the mood as the warm up for the reception, and then receptions as well. I perform on electric violin as getting the dance floor warmed up with the DJ. So that's more the solo side of things. Otherwise, some couples also opt for duets or quartets. They're usually for ceremonies and canapé hours. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of different things that you can involve a violinist for at a wedding.
And how do you select the right type of music? Like, do you send them a questionnaire and say, hey, pick the songs for the ceremony and for the canapé hour? Or do you say, this is my repertoire, this is what I'll do?
Yeah. So I have a PDF that I send to my couples that's a ridiculously long set list, essentially. I've got it's all sectioned out. So I've got my classical repertoire, pop repertoire, jazz. Trying to think if there's any other genres or traditional music as well.
Hmm.
So I send that to them, and then I help them through the process of choosing certain songs from that repertoire list. And it's very extensive. So usually any songs that they already have in mind that they'd like at their wedding, they usually covered on the list. And if they're not, I then will learn their songs. But I definitely always guide them through the process and
Yeah.
help them pick out what's best suited.
Yeah, amazing. Let's talk a bit about your wardrobe. Oh my God. What do you do? Somebody was telling me the other day that oftentimes musicians will hire a dress for an occasion, but that's really eating into your bottom line of what you're earning if you're hiring $100 Zimmerman dress for one wedding. Do you do that, or do you just have an extensive wardrobe?
I do a little bit of both. I am a shopaholic. I'm
Uh-oh.
a massive shopaholic. I know. My partner will say that it's an issue.
Saving for a house, saving for a house.
I hide the postman parcels and my shopping bags on weekends.
That
I
used to
love
be me with
shopping.
the Aldi special buys. I used to be like, "Whoa, I can just tuck this into the grocery bill and nobody will know." I mean, obviously not clothes, but just stupid crap for the house.
Some good buys now at Aldi.
I know, amazing.
Stuff that you'd never think. But yeah, I definitely invest in lots of my gig dresses.
Yeah.
And I'll get a couple of staple black dresses, and then really popular colors like some pastel pinks or gold, silver. So I've taken my time over the couple of years now just to kind of build my wardrobe up, and invest in some like lifelong gig dresses that I'll have. But I also do rent for certain events where I might need something a little extra special or a different color. often clients will request that, you know, they've got a blue and green theme. So I try my best to match in with the theme. And if I don't have something in the wardrobe, I will hire. And I do love hiring as well.
Do you? I've never done it.
So much fun.
It's fun until something goes wrong. I just did a wedding recently, and one of the guests, I love Zimmerman, and I was like, oh, love your dress. And she's like, yeah, well, I hired it. She goes, but I split it. And I was like, and
Oh my God.
she said that she's got a friend who's an amazing seamstress, and the friend took it apart and restitched it. And she's
Yeah.
like, you know, you would never know. She goes, but it is a true size 10. And I am a size 10, and I zipped it up, but I bent down to pick up my shoe and it split. And that would be my worst nightmare. That's why I don't think I've ever done it.
Yeah, yeah. I tend to avoid hiring from online boutiques, and I will try on before so I do it's really funny. I'll get in, I go to this one particular boutique called Rent My Style. She's got an amazing array of cocktail dresses and any dress or outfit under the sun. But I'll stand in the dressing room doing this and pretending to play just to make sure that there's no mishaps on the day.
Yeah. And just so you know, for anybody listening who's in Australia, there is a Facebook group called Buy, Swap and Celebrant, but I'm sure, of course, anybody can go into this, in like musicians, etc., where oftentimes we'll sell our dresses off, and then use whatever small amount of money to buy new dresses and kind of do a little recycle, which is great.
Yeah, that is good.
It's also super awesome when you find someone who's your size. Like Emma Tomlinson and I are the same size. So anytime she puts something up, I'm like, yep, I'll just have that. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
So perfect. What are you finding are some of the most popular songs this season? I mean, obviously we're going into 2024. Have you had any sort of repeat requests? I mean, I know we've got a lot of old school songs coming back, like Murder on the Dance Floor that I saw you play the other day. Have you got any?
Yeah. So, I'd say the top three favorite artists that people love to pick from, definitely Ed Sheeran, without a doubt. Taylor Swift. Who else? Maybe Christina Perri's 1,000 Years.
Oh
That's
my
also
God,
very popular.
that song needs to be erased from history, I think.
I know, I'm getting a bit. It's every wedding.
I know.
They're beautiful songs and they're classic.
But it's yeah. But when you're in the wedding industry, you hear it over and over again. Do people come to you often with songs that you don't know, that you've never heard, that they want to walk down the aisle to? And will you learn those songs for them?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of traditional songs, like Lebanese songs that I've learned for weddings. They're a lot of fun. It's a great challenge. And often they're very technically challenging as well, which is a lot of fun to learn. So I'll definitely learn those for clients, and it's a bit exciting as well to not have to play Can't Help Falling in Love again.
Yeah, that's awesome. It is so nice to learn something new, for sure. I mean, this is totally, I feel like the musician has evolved in terms of weddings, like greatly in the last 5 or 6 years. And now it's a real show-stopping thing, right? So when you perform at a wedding, it's not just standing up there, standing still and playing anymore. It is absolutely dancing, moving, bending. Is that come naturally to you?
I was growing up, I was a vocalist as well. It kind of took the bit of a backseat when I went to uni. So I have a musical theatre background as well. So I love doing all that stuff. I love theatre and I love dance. So it definitely came a little bit more naturally to me as I have that background. And it's so much fun as well, getting to perform. Yeah.
I feel like Sally Cooper and Lily Thornton really sort of took this to the next level in Melbourne a few years ago. More so Sally, I think, because she started off with, I guess maybe Guy Sebastian, that kind of sort of highlighted her into the atmosphere. And I feel like she was the first person that I saw who was really getting down on the dance floor. And I was like, wow.
Yes.
I mean, she is tiny, but she is so athletic. I mean, it takes it to a whole new level. Like, yes,
Yeah.
so amazing.
She's
Are,
amazing.
are there any challenges or unexpected situations that you have encountered?
Oh, definitely the technology difficulties,
Yeah.
as we spoke about at the start of our conversation. Um, oh, probably also trying to think. It's actually probably just mainly technologically, your speaker or batteries or
Mm,
connection issues, because everything is wireless or it's Bluetooth.
yeah,
And as we all know, technology can be it can
exactly.
be amazing, but it also can be shocking and really
Totally.
kind of touch and go
In the
at times.
performing world, is the things
Um,
that you can't control that are the most stressful, right? The traffic, the technology, you can prepare yourself,
yeah.
but you can't prepare for what could eventuate. And, it's interesting in itself. Like I've had a couple of technical issues with my PA, and people are not so forgiving. And it's like, but it's actually not my fault. Like I've charged my PA, I've charged
Yeah.
my wireless microphone, I've turned it on and it's not pairing. And this happened recently to me at a wedding at Crown on the rooftop with 300 people.
Mm.
And I did remain calm, and I did have the lovely photographer at Con from Icon help me, and we actually got it paired and it was fine, but oh so stressful. And it's those things that are out of your control that are like, oh God. Same thing with traffic. Like I'm always in the car. If I'm going to Dalesford, I'm always in the car, and I'll have lunch in Dalesford because you can't control the traffic, or if there's an accident or etc. Yeah, those sorts of things are really stressful for us for sure. How do you strike that balance between your own creative style and the styles that are out there? Like if someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I want Ed Sheeran," do you play that song with your own flair, or do you play it with like an acoustic version that you've heard? How do you strike that balance?
Yeah. I'd say that every wedding I do, I think that my performances, let's say of an Ed Sheeran song, Perfect, it'll be different every time. And that's the beauty and the fun of it as well. Sometimes it also depends on the couple whether I give options of if they'd like an acoustic version, or something that's a bit heavier that's got some drums in it or something.
Yeah,
Um, and then obviously I cater to their preferences.
yeah,
Um, and I'll embellish it a little bit as well to give it, a little bit of flair. And I love improvisation as well. So that is such, yeah, I think that's a really important tool for performers to
mm,
incorporate into songs,
for sure.
just to keep it interesting.
Yeah, one thing I was never very good at was jazz improv and singing. It's
It's
so,
hard.
oh my God, so hard, so hard.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
advice would you give to couples who are in the process of choosing a musician? What would you say to them?
Well, definitely get the best wedding app. um, well, it's literally your one-stop shop for looking at vendors. Because I know, like, if you're especially not, you don't come from that music world, you're searching most likely on Instagram or on
Yeah,
Google.
yeah,
Whereas, and that can take a long time, and you're not sure where to look. Whereas on the app, it's just all there for you.
yeah.
So you can just swipe along and have a look at all your different vendors. So I definitely recommend that. And also doing a bit of research, looking at other people's weddings, who they've used, what kind of vibes they're going for in terms of their music selections,
Yeah.
and get some inspiration.
Yeah. And speaking of inspiration, have you noticed any trends? Any new
Oh,
trends?
I'm really loving it. I've had a couple brides at the moment pick not your typical song selections like Ed Sheeran and stuff like that. I had a bride pick Fred again, who is a like a DJ.
Cool.
And she wanted a Fred again song, and I was over the moon by it. I was like, I love this song, so cool. So I get to do my own little adaptation of this song.
Awesome.
Um, and it's just great to use different things, you know,
Yeah.
than the regular kind of
Yes.
songs that everyone uses for their
Same
weddings.
stuff. Yeah, exactly. Beyond weddings, do you do any like composition or anything like that?
I definitely don't do any composition.
Do you
I've never been good at that.
do you play at all in like musicals or things like that? Does that interest you?
Yeah, I'd love to. I did do a couple of musicals, probably at the end of 2022.
Yeah.
Take some time to think about that. I'm like 2024, we're in now.
Yeah.
um, I definitely love to get a bit more into it, into doing musicals. I do some classical performances as well in orchestra settings. So I do have that wide range of different performance experiences, which I love. Keeps things
Yeah.
interesting.
Awesome. Do you have any standout or favorite moments that you can think of that have happened recently?
Oh, I had a wedding. It would have been at the end of last year, maybe in the middle of last year. And there was a little boy who probably 7 or 8, and he came and sat down during my canapé hour for about the entire hour, pretty much, just sitting there. It was so cute, so cute. And he would clap after the end of every song. Like he was just absolutely fixated. It was just so gorgeous. And it was so cute. He would bring me water as well. I was like, oh,
Oh,
you don't need to do that. And this
what
little
a
boy is like
gorgeous
8
boy.
going up to the, yeah, such a little gentleman, so cute. But he was the bride's nephew, and the bride actually texted me about a month ago saying that he started violin at school because of me, and the fact that he remembers it at such a young age and having that
So nice.
influence. I thought that was so sweet.
Oh, that's
Um,
incredible.
yeah, so just knowing that you can, you know, influence other people to pick up the violin is like, that's really special for me as well, having an education background.
Totally. And just on
Yeah.
influencing people, we're going to touch on something that's not violin related, but oh, so important. So Florence and I were actually supposed to record the podcast last week, and we didn't because Florence had a skin check and she had to have a sinister mole removed. Which is so scary. And thankfully she is okay. But the moral of this story is that I had a weird mole pop up on my nose kind of overnight. And then Florence was like, oh, can we reschedule? This has happened. And I was like, oh, I really should get that mole checked. I hadn't had a skin check in 2 years. So I went out and got my mole checked, which is fine. But this is so important. And because of that conversation with you, I've then gone off and got my skin checked. Is that something that you do regularly?
Definitely not, but it should be something that I do regularly because I have lots of freckles all over me.
Mm.
But yeah, I can't stress the importance of it because I think it's something that isn't really talked about, or it's not common for people to kind of do, to go and get
Well,
skin checks.
it's so interesting because the two Australians of the year were the melanoma researchers, right? And my niece is 30. She is a nurse. She'll hate that I'm saying this, but she's a nurse. And she is forever at the beach. And she is like her skin is just darker by the day. And I'm like, Emily, what are you doing? Like, we live in Australia. Melanoma is so high. Like, you're a nurse.
Hmm.
Why is this not getting through to you that, like, just use some fake tan? And I have 2 kids, and I've just recently, they're both teenagers, so we've been going to the pool quite a bit. And I was sitting next to this group of teenagers, there was 5 of them, and they were lathering themselves up in oil, which is something that was done in the 60s or the 70s. And, I would have thought that with all of the research and the advocacy and the knowledge that we've learned over the years that kids would be a bit more sun smart. But my kids are a bit more sun smart. So like my daughter's got this mole on her neck and she was like, Mom, like, is this a worry? Like, should I come with you to have a look? And one thing that the doctor said to me, which actually floored me, she said, I said, you know, and she was very generous. I showed her a picture of the mole and she's like, no, that's fine. But she said it only takes 3 bad burns in your lifetime for you to be at a very high risk for melanoma. And I can tell you, I went on many a family holiday to Hawaii and fried the crap out of back, like blistering crap. That's so scary.
Yeah, there's such a bad tanning culture. I mean, I'm not sure whether it's the same overseas, but definitely in Australia, the tanning culture and going out in the sun, yeah, it's really, really terrible, you know? And when we have options like using fake tan that achieve, you know, pretty much the same results, I don't know why people are putting their health at risk. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
very scary, very, very scary.
Yes. Well, thank you for being open about that and for sharing it with me because you influenced me to do something that was, you know, on the back burner. Florence, you're absolutely amazing. Tell us how people can find you. Obviously, they can find you on the Best Wedding app. They can find you on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
Florence Alex.
Cool. And where else can they find you? Do you have
Yeah.
a website?
I'm currently creating a website. So that's in the woodworks at the moment, which is very exciting. So for now, just my Instagram and also my email, which is
Yeah.
florencealex.cs@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure and a half to chat to you. Thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
See you soon.
Bye.